Good morning. This morning I wanted to talk about Mary McKillop, Sister Mary McKillop. She became Blessed Mary McKillop, and now as of 2010, she's Saint Mary McKillop. This is a gal who became a sister and started the Saint Joseph of the Sacred Heart. She is born actually in Australia, so she is actually the only saint declared from Australia. And she had an interesting past, and it kind of taught me something about power in the church, and it's fascinating. But first of all, about her. She is born of two Scottish parents. They had immigrated, I think, in 1838 and 1840 maybe, and she is born in 1842 of these two, Scottish parents, and grows up. And the father had actually studied to be a priest, but nonetheless, she started out as a sales clerk in a store, trying to help make money for the family, and then went on to become a nanny for her aunt, and this is a governess. A governess. So she gets this position, and then as a part of it, though, she starts pulling in the neighbor kids to teach as well as the children of her aunts. And she thought this was really interesting, and started working as a teacher a little bit farther out from there. And this is in a little more remote area. And there she runs into a priest named Julian Woods. And Julian and her talk about this, and he's a very inspiring fellow to her. And he is quite inspired by the fact that she's reaching out to this far poor community and just teaching there. And they decided that she should start a school. So they do that. She gets a couple of her sisters to join with her, sisters meaning her actual sisters. And then very shortly on, some other gals start joining in. So this very quickly went from 3 to like 10 of them. And then very shortly after that, they started expanding and had opening more schools. And they would live on a very strict, she came up with the idea for her order of sisters, because she would take on, this is after 2 or 3 years, she took on a black dress and decided to dress a little bit more like a nun, and then took vows of poverty and chastity, obedience. And the obedience is to the Pope. She was quite concerned that as she would spread out, that all of them would run things differently. So what she set up was this poverty, but she also wanted to have a central governing agency for the sisters, so that they would all operate the same. This went on, and it was extremely successful. She was very much welcomed in by the bishops in the different dioceses of Australia because they did so much good work. But they started running into problems in the fact that they wanted to be in control of what was going on. And she said, no, this is all going to be central. I'm reporting straight to the Pope. Now, you can't report to a Pope. So doesn't she, on her own, go to Rome and plead to see the Pope? And the Pope is so interested, because by this time, the bishops had given her such a hard time that the one bishop had actually excommunicated her. And this Pope had never met a nun who had been excommunicated. So he was quite curious to hear the whole story. And as he heard it, he thought, well, that's a good idea to run these all the same in all the different areas under one way of operating. So he said, no, that's fine, you can have it. And he gives her a papal document. She goes back to Australia. Granted, this is a great journey. She goes back to Australia with her documents and proving this. That doesn't help. The bishops still want to be in charge. And they give her an incredible hard time. A lot of disreputable things said about her, sent back to Rome, all kinds of ways of giving her trouble. And it's interesting, she never took a sour attitude from all this. As a matter of fact, the quote that's at the beginning of this is, "The cross is my portion, it is my sweet rest and support." So she had to be a very strong-minded gal to be holding up so strongly to all the resistance of everything else. It also made me think of the fact that power creates problems. And I think in this case we can blame the bishops. Oh, they should just let her run things or what have you. But to another extent, you wonder, well, anytime that we're in a position where we can have power and authority, how do you limit it to be okay? And how do you totally give it away? And I'm not so sure being powerless isn't a part of the essence of what it is to be Christian. In other words, I'm not self-directed. Part of signing on to saying, hey, I want to follow Christ, is the fact that I don't follow just my inner voice alone. And so the voice comes through my conscience. It comes through the teachings of the church. It comes through the scriptures. It comes from a rich source that allows us to do a check and a double check on ourselves. Because anyone, myself included, like to think, oh, we're all okay. And yet, when we have influence over others, it's difficult not to go too far. It's difficult to say, well, I'm not going to control this situation at all. Well, she goes on to have incredibly good success. And so all through Australia and New Zealand, they have orphanages, they have schools, they're just helping out. They are going out to the outreaches of places where the poor are and setting up operations there, living in very strict poverty themselves, so that they're not like going down to the people. They're right at that same level of just barely getting enough to eat. And it's fascinating that joining with them is the way of doing it. It's interesting also that at the end of her life, as opposed to getting all kinds of acclaim, she still is being given difficult times by the bishops in the area, but she gets an illness that lasts, very, very painful illness that lasts for many years, and then she'll eventually pass in 1909. It doesn't say exactly how many years she was suffering from this illness, but it sounds like it was quite painful, so I don't know if that was a slow-growing cancer or what. But it's fascinating that even in suffering, she never loses the attitude of, oh, it's all for Christ. You know, I wonder if I can take things that happen to me and say, oh, it's all for Christ. Well, I guess the expression she said is, the cross is my portion. Let us enjoy our portion, whether that be good or rough. Let us be very cautious of power in any sense it might be, because I think power can be very dangerous for us personally and for anyone who has or shares in it. Have a great day.